What's up, guys? Dr. Ben Pollock here. I'm trying to be like Mike Israel because he's real cool and everything. Today, we're going to talk about developing the ability to grind and how it relates to your one rep max. So, on Instagram, I've been doing Q&As lately on my stories. If you've been following along, you've probably seen some of them. One of the really good ones I got yesterday said that this guy has a problem with his rep strength compared to his top end strength. So he's able to do 185 pounds on the bench press for a good number of reps, say 6 or 8, something like that. But then he fails 200, 210 in that range. He can't complete a rep. And obviously, we all know that if you can rep out 185, you should probably be able to do, a little bit more than 200 pounds, probably, closer to 225, maybe even 250, depending on, how strong you are. If you're just starting out, you're not really familiar with that, it's really easy to go look up an online one rep max calculator. You can plug in your numbers, what you're able to do for a set of 6 or 8 or however many reps, and it will give you a rough estimate of how many you can do for one repetition. Now, remember, that's a generalized formula. It's not going to be true for everybody, and everybody's going to have their individual differences, right? So someone who does 200 pounds for 5 might be capable of doing 300 pounds for 1. And another person who does 200 pounds for 5 might only be capable of, 250 pounds. But generally, you're going to be able to do quite a bit more for 1 rep than you could for 3 or 4 or 5 reps. If you can't, there's an issue, and generally, in my experience, this comes down to your ability to grind. When I say grind, I mean your ability to maintain good technique while pushing through a very difficult rep. So my absolute favorite example of this is Dan Green, and you guys have all seen Dan Green. When he does a rep, it looks like RPE 10, and then he does another rep, and it just keeps coming. It's like he has no limit. And that's because Dan probably has a better ability to grind than anybody else on the planet. It's really fun to watch, but it's also a very valuable skill when you're trying to be a competitive powerlifter, because it doesn't matter how fast you move the rep, all that matters is that you complete it. So if you can maintain that technique under those heavy loads near 1 rep maximum, you're going to have a better likelihood of finishing the rep, and then you're going to have a better total at the end of the meet. So if you can't do that, if you really struggle with the ability to grind, and you find that when you start doing heavier and heavier weights, you just miss reps, you can't finish the lift, there's probably a breakdown somewhere in that process. And so today I'm going to discuss how to fix that. And I want you to keep in mind, this is a very long-term process. It's not going to be an overnight fix. This is not, one quick secret to change your bench press. This is something that's going to take months, if not years. Okay, so this is a very long-term thing. This is something that I really structure into my philosophy of athlete development when I'm coaching athletes one-on-one, which I don't do anymore. But when you have a raw beginner, generally they need to spend a lot of time just getting familiar with the technique of different lifts. After you've passed that raw beginner stage, you're typically able to progress linearly to a certain point. And what I mean by that is you can start out in 1 week, you're going to do 100 pounds for 10 repetitions. The next week, you can probably do 105 pounds for 10 repetitions. After that, 110, 120. You're probably not going to have to periodize your training for a little while. When I say periodize, I mean you're not going to have to decrease your reps as you increase the weight, right? You don't have to decrease the volume as you increase the intensity. You can just increase linearly in intensity while maintaining constant volume. Now, that's generally only true for higher rep ranges. Oftentimes you'll see beginners really struggle with lower rep ranges, whether it's due to lack of technical proficiency, whether it's due to lack of confidence, and whether it's just simply due to lack of strength. But all those things can be addressed. The way to address it, all right, I want to be very clear here, the way to address it, and I think this is the one right way, is to find out the exact point where your technique starts to break down. Okay, so whether that's 70% of your 1 rep max or 80% or 90%, you have to find that percentage point. The only way you can do that is by trial and error, continually increasing your percent of intensity, percent of 1 rep max, until you start to feel like, hey, I can't maintain good technique. I start to round my lower back off the floor in my deadlifts, or I hit that sticking point halfway through my bench press and I just can't grind through it. Whatever that percentage point is, you then back off 2 to 5%, and you're going to train in that sweet spot with multiple sets of low repetitions. When I say multiple sets of low repetitions, I generally try to fall somewhere in, let's say, the 12 to 25 total repetition range for a given workout. and somewhere in 2 to 5 reps per set, right? So however that looks for you. Now, over time, if you practice that, you will get better, and you'll find that you're able to increase very slightly the percentage before you hit that point where your technique starts to break down, right? Again, this is a very gradual process. What I find is that most beginners tend to be okay somewhere in the 70 to 80% range. They can work really hard in that range and they can progress linearly, but when they go over 80%, then that's when the technique inefficiencies start to break down. Once you're at the intermediate level, then generally you're good in 80 to low 90s, a little bit over 90 is typical. And it's really not until you get to the point where you're really working in the single to triple range for hard sets that you see that breakdown in technique. And then once you're at an advanced level, you're generally working in the mid 90s, the 92 to 97%. For me, when I'm looking at elite lifters, it's really their technique doesn't break down ever, right? They can go to 100% of their 1 rep max or even more than that and still maintain perfect technique. And again, I would encourage you to go look at guys like Dan Green, guys like Joe Sullivan, guys like Yuri Belkin. Their technique does not falter no matter what. And that's a skill that they've built over thousands and thousands of repetitions over dozens of years, okay? But it is something that I encourage you to work on for yourself, because no matter what your goal, whether it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, strongman, anything related to lifting weights, you're going to be better if you're able to grind through a heavy rep. It's just a skill that transfers over to a lot of different contexts. So if you guys are more interested in this topic, I will do one that's directly applicable to bodybuilding or directly applicable to powerlifting. But I would appreciate it if you leave some feedback for me in the comments below so that I can improve and so that I can make sure that whatever type of content I am producing is the type of content that you would like to watch. But that's all I've got for today. Again, leave your comments and questions in the area below, and I will talk to you soon.